Senator Moreno.
Chairman, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time on the phone the other day. Appreciate that very much. Just to ask you a broad general question. When you increase M2, the money supply, by 40% over a short period of time, is that going to drive inflation?
It could. Well, I think we discussed, monetary aggregates have not been a great predictor of really any other thing. But I think when there's a sharp increase like that in M2, then that could, that's something that might cause some inflation.
Now, is that just to be clear for the people watching, that happened because of public policy in this institution here, correct? In other words, there wasn't a civilian-led effort to increase government spending outside of the elected leaders that chose to make those decisions.
I think that was part of it. I think there were just a lot of causes in the inflation that we saw, but it's fiscal policy, it was monetary policy, it was just closing and reopening the economy. It just generated a bunch of confusing signals and then a lot of inflation everywhere in the world, really, whether people did a lot of fiscal policy or not. So, but there were many factors, and that's, I would say, one of them.
But just to be clear, it wasn't the citizens of the country making those decisions. Those were elected leaders choosing to close the economy. Businesses didn't decide one day to close, didn't decide to not be able to go to work. Those were decisions made by policymakers, correct?
Yes.
So it's a little disingenuous to be hear my colleagues talk about how they care so much about inflation when in reality they cause it. But I don't want to continue that. I'd ask you a question just out of curiosity because you worked at the Department of Treasury. At what point did you think they were going to run out of ink? Did that concern you that maybe it was possible that they were printing so much money that the Treasury would have to find alternate ink suppliers?
Didn't occur to me, but good question.
So along those lines, something that concerns me a lot is the idea that we would even look like China in any way. So can I have your commitment that as long as you're the chairman of the Federal Reserve System, that we will never have a central bank digital currency?
Yes.
Thank you for that. I think that's extremely important. It makes me very happy to hear you say that. Shifting gears to a little bit something that matters to me and entrepreneurs all over the country is why can't I wire somebody money at 6 p.m. Eastern time? Can we get to a 24/7 scenario where wires are cleared every day, all day? I think that would be very, very helpful to businesses all over the country.
So that's coming. It's just coming slowly here. We have that at Fed Now. We'll get in touch with you about Fed Now. We provide that service between two banks, and others want to provide it too. But yes, we do kind of lag a lot of other countries in that, and it is time for that to happen.
So I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, it's Fed Now. I was very familiar with it, but it was a little bit late in coming. Can we get a commitment to do that this year so that by the end of this calendar year, businesses can transact 24/7 and settle payments?
Well, I think they can do that now I believe they can do it now on Fed Now, and they can also do it on the RTP system as well. So I think it's available. Let me check in and I'll follow up with you.
That'd be great. One other piece of the puzzle here is what do you think the Fed can do to fight international terror groups, for example, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the proxies that are funded by places like Qatar? Do you think that we're doing enough to keep them outside of the banking system? Because at the end of the day, terrorism is ultimately funded by these bad actors. I met with the hostage families this morning. It was heart-wrenching to hear stories about kids that are my kids' age being held for almost 500 days. The Qataris are obviously completely complicit in all this. What can we do? What advice would you have that we can do to make certain that we bring these terror groups to their knees?
We do enforce the money laundering laws very, very strictly, but it's a tough question. It's a huge focus in international meetings and things like that. But you're right; it's really hard to nail it down, particularly if it's all happening overseas. But we can do what we can do with our banks. We don't want to make it so costly, though, that they debank people because they're so worried about violating the anti-money laundering laws. I mean, that's some of what's happening, according to the banks, is that they're so afraid that there might be money laundering that they just cut people off at the first flag, as opposed to perfectly legal businesses are being, thrown out because of their fear of being caught doing money laundering. So I think there's a balance there. But no, it's a really, really hard project and one we spend a lot of time on.
Thank you, Chairman.